So today, looking at the scriptures, um, it's interesting. We see a lot of things happening in the world. We've witnessed in your generations and my generations many things happening in the world, and we know that the scriptures talks about the wars and rumors of wars. Um, right now, you're going to get a lot of people on YouTube, especially now that we have this social media platforms, who are going to even set dates. They're going to set dates and they're going to talk about what's going on. Um, I've witnessed some AI showing propaganda, you know, about America's getting bombed or over here is getting bombed and all these things. I know as a kid there was wars happening in the Middle East when I was a kid in the 90s and where we were, you're always going to have these generations, and I'm sure that even further back before I was even alive, people were concerned. Even if you go back to World War II, and they might have been saying like, this must be the end. This must be the end, and so there's always going to be this. And sometimes I feel like even within the body of Mashiach, there can be a lot of people speaking in a way of fear and pressing that on one another. And I really think that it's something that I've seen in the scriptures. And this one word has always been, it's like penetrated my heart and my thoughts, because here we see that in Matthew chapter 24, it says in verse 42, Yahusha just says, watch thereof. Therefore, for you not know what hour your master does come. But this word watch is the word that I wanted to look at today and just read some parables using this. And this word here is just to be awake. He says to keep awake. That is watch. And they use it in the King James version as to be vigilant, to be watchful. And that's an important part, because Yahusha has told us all things. He says all things are given to us. So we're not in a place of life where we can say, well, we don't know, or something's going to happen and we're not really sure of. There's a lot of things that he even said. He says, I don't even know the day or the hour, but my Father only. So if our master doesn't know, because he said, when my Father sends me, and he says to go forth, he's going to go forth. He's going to send the angels. All these things are going to unfold. And we know that because we have the word. So what is the position for us to do today? Do we worry? And that was one of my questions, like continuing to see what's going on in the world, even as we're speaking today, what's happening. Do I worry about that? Is that something of my concern, or is that above my pay grade? Is that really truly it's in the Father's hands how things are going to play out? And unfortunately, during these times, there's a lot of political tug of wars happening, and power and everything. All those things are for sure. Those are true. But what do we do today? And so looking at this, I continue to see that word as watch. That's all we have to do. But there's a part of it that I was also noticing, that it's not just looking as far as what's happening, but it's also the action behind what do we do as we're watching and we're continuing to stay vigilant. So I want to I want to go to the parable here in the book of Mark. In the book of Mark chapter 13, there's a parable here in verse 34. It's not a very long one. Um, but here he says, and I'll go ahead and read from 32 just to be in context. But in Mark 13, verse 32, he says, but concerning that day or hour, no one knows, even not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. And here he says, be on guard, keep awake, for you do not know when the time will come. It is like a man going on a journey. And here's the parable. It's like a man going on a journey when he leaves home and puts his servants in charge, each with his work, and commands the doorkeeper to stay awake. Therefore, stay awake, for you do not know when the master of the house will come, in the evening, or at midnight, or when the rooster crows, or in the morning, lest he come suddenly and find you asleep. And what I say to you, I say to all, stay awake. And here in that verse 37, you see in the King James, they say, And what I say unto you, I say unto all, watch. Again, this is what our master has told us. He has told us to stay on guard right here in verse 33. I want to look at some of these words because the whole verse itself is it can be broken down, and he says take heed, which is to listen or to look at, look closely at, and he says and watch. And here's a different word than what the word that we've just seen at the end of the chapter, I mean of that portion. In this word he says to be sleepless, that is to keep awake. So to be awake in that way, to not be asleep. Of course, we know that he's not talking about going to sleep as far as what you do in the night, but he's saying to keep your eyes open, stay on guard, and be vigilant if we use all of those words together. But he also says to pray and to pray because you don't know the day or the hour. You don't know when the time is coming. And so this is a part of watching. It's watching and praying. And some of these other translations, they say, be on your guard and stay alert. So this is what he's told us to do. We could worry. We could worry about the wars and the rumors of wars and what's happening around the world. But when we hear the words our master is saying, he's saying to be vigilant, to stay awake, and to continue and stay in prayer. We know we can add to that and get into fellowship. We could talk about, all these different other areas that would come with it. But for me, it's been the foundation is to watch and pray. And praying is another major factor that we see here. It's not a light matter because it's something that if you're busy and your day is going fast and you wake up and you got to go to work and you forget, take that time out to pray, right? A lot of times you're busy in the evening. And we talked about this during a study. It's taking the time out to give that prayer to the Father in the nighttime. As we know, the scripture says before while you're putting your kids to bed, you're going to come and talk to them about Yahuah. Maybe get into prayer. Again, it's all these factors of praying, again, because we don't know when the time is. And this word here in Ephesians chapter 6, we see a verse that tells us the encouragement in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 18. It tells us this. It says, praying at all times in the Spirit with all prayer and supplication. To that end, keep alert with all perseverance, making supplication for all the saints. Again, praying at all times in the Spirit. And this is a part of, again, being watchful or staying vigilant. Because this is, again, this is the times that we're living in, and many could be older than myself, where they've been in other times where it seems like this is the end. So we're just staying on guard. And I think that's one of the major factors when we're talking about watching is to stay on guard. But there's some actions that we have to do while we're staying on guard. And it's not just staying in a place for instance, it's not just staying in a cave or just staying and not going out and doing anything no more. So there's work that still got to get done. And here in Matthew chapter 20, we get to see that starting in verse 1. In Matthew chapter 20 and verse 1, we get another parable from our master, and it says, for the kingdom of heaven is like a master of a house who went out early in the morning to hire laborers for his vineyard. After agreeing with the laborers for a denarius a day, he sent them into his vineyard. And going out about the third hour, he saw others standing idle in the marketplace. And to them he said, you go into the vineyard too, and whatever is right I will give you. So they went, going out again about the sixth hour and the ninth hour, and he did the same. And about the 11th hour he went out and found others standing, and he said to them, why do you stand here idle all day? They said, because no one has hired us. He said to them, you go into the vineyard too. And when evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his foreman, call the laborers, pay their wages, beginning with the last up to the first. And when those hired about the 11th hour came, each of them received a denarius. Now, when those hired first came, they thought they would receive more, but each of them also received a denarius. And on receiving it, they grumbled at the master of the house, saying, These last worked only 1 hour. You have made them equal to us, who have borne the burden of the day and the scorching heat. But he replied to one of them, Friend, I'm doing you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for a denarius? Take what belongs to you and go. I choose to give to this last worker as I give to you. Am I not allowed to do what I choose with what belongs to me? Or do you begrudge my generosity? So the last will be first and the first last. And here we see this word that it gets used quite a bit in this parable, and it's this word laborers. This is what let's go to see what the word laborers means. And here, look what it says: a toiler, somebody who is toiling. The Thayer's Greek lexicon says a workman, usually one who works for hire, especially on agricultural work. This is what the master said to go and do. And in this parable, he tells them, all. He says, "You guys are the laborers. Again, you're not just standing there watching and seeing what's happening around you, but you're doing something. We're all called to do something." Of course, in this parable, he's giving equal amount for everybody, no matter what time of your life, because that's how I would want to put it. No matter what time of your life you came into the way, you're here now. And don't be mad at somebody who comes in when they're 80 years old and they've been a non-believer all these years. Be excited. That's We know that's the end result of this parable. But the part about it for me is the laborers, being a toiler, being somebody who's working continuously until the master comes, because that's what it becomes about. Being vigilant. Yes, we're watching, we're seeing the times, and we're understanding that part, but we're also being laborers for his kingdom, because the day is going to come when this is going to happen. In verse 8, when the evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his foreman, Call the laborers and pay them their wages. That's going to happen for each and every one of us. The day's going to come when the laborers are going to be called. But my question was, what about those that ain't working? What about those that don't work? They're not doing anything, they're not toiling. And it doesn't have to be something major. Of course, you have brothers and sisters that create nonprofit organizations, and they're doing this major feeding to the poor, or they're helping the orphans, or they're doing great big fellowships and doing all this work. I think those are blessings. But it's always going to be something. It's just labor, it's toiling. Whatever's on your heart to go and do. But it's a continuous, because we can get busy with life. All of us, everybody can get busy with life, with whatever it is you do, whether you have homestead, whether you live in the city and you have a job and you're just working. And it's such a busy life when we're trying to pay bills, when we're in a system that has us in that race. But we have to toil. We have to labor. Again, I stress the point here in verse 8, because he's saying, call the laborers. That's who he's going to call, and pay them their wages. Of course, as we see in the parable, everybody gets paid the same, but still, you're going to get paid. And that's the blessing that our Father is telling us in throughout His Word, is to stay moving, stay working. Here, let's go to Matthew chapter 21 for another parable. This is another parable here in chapter 21, verse 33. And it says this: Here another parable. There was a master of a house who planted a vineyard and put a fence around it and dug a winepress in it and built a tower and leased it to its tenants and went into another country. When the season for fruit drew near, he sent his servants to the tenants to get his fruit. And the tenants took his servants and beat one, killed another, and stoned another. Again, he sent other servants, more than the first, and they did the same to them. Finally, he sent his son to them, saying, they will respect my son. But when the tenants saw the son, they said to themselves, this is the heir. Come, let us kill him and have his inheritance. And they took him and threw him out of the vineyard and killed him. When therefore the owner of the vineyard comes, what will he do to these tenants? They said to him, he will put those wretches to a miserable death and let out the vineyard to other tenants who will give him the fruits in their seasons. Yahushua said to them, have you never read in the scriptures? The stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. This was the master's doing, and is a marvelous in our eyes. Therefore I tell you, the kingdom of Elohim will be taken away from you and given to a people producing its fruits. And the one who falls on this stone will be broken to pieces, and when it falls on anyone, it will crush him. Of course, here in verse 45, when the chief priests and the Pharisees heard this parable, they perceived that he was speaking about them. And although they were seeking to arrest him, they feared the crowds because they held him to be a prophet. It's interesting here because what we find is that in verse 43, it says, therefore I tell you, the kingdom of Elohim will be taken away from you and given to a people producing its fruits. The whole part of this one was interesting for me because it goes back to a laboring. Again, it's producing its fruits. Who is doing that work? Of course, he goes to a certain people, a certain group, and they did what they did in this parable because they wanted the inheritance. And as we see in the scriptures, the Pharisees perceived they were talking about them, and that's who what Yahushua was talking about. But here in Isaiah, it tells us something similar. In Isaiah chapter 26, it says here, in that day, this song will be sung in the land of Judah. We have a strong city. He sets up salvation as walls and bulwarks. Open the gates that the righteous nation that keeps faith may enter in. And this word here for the righteous nation, we have this word goyi. And if you look at the Strong's Concordance, it gives you a definition. It says a foreign nation, hence a Gentile, also a troop of animals or a flight of locusts. So it's interesting that if we use these words and we see in Isaiah 26 verse 2, it says, open the gates that the righteous nation may enter in. And he continues to say, you keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on you because he trusts in you. Trust in Yahuah forever, for Yahuah Elohim is an everlasting rock. For he has humbled the inhabitants of the height, the lofty city. He lays it low to the ground, cast it to the dust. The foot tramples it, the feet of the poor, the steps of the needy. The path of the righteous is level. You make level the way of the righteous. In the path of your judgments, O Yahuwah, we wait for you. Your name and remembrance are the desire of our soul. My soul yearns for you in the night. My spirit within me earnestly seeks you. For when your judgments are in the earth, the inhabitants of the world learn righteousness. If favor is shown to the wicked, he does not learn righteousness. In the land of the uprightness, he deals corruptly and does not seek the majesty of Yahuwah. O Yahuwah, your hand is lifted up, but they do not see it. Let them see your zeal for your people and be ashamed. Let the fire for your adversaries consume them. O Yahuwah, you will ordain peace for us, for you have indeed done for us all the works. O Yahuwah our Elohim, other masters besides you have ruled over us, but your name alone we bring to remembrance. They are dead, they will not live. They are shades, they will not arise. To that end you have visited them with destruction and wiped out all the remembrance of them. But you have increased the nation, O Yahuwah. You have increased the nation. You are glorified. You have enlarged all the borders of the land. It's interesting in this portion of Isaiah 26, I was reading and I was just thinking about how Yahuwah says he's going to open up the gates. He's going to open up the gates for a nation, a people that are not just because he wants to open up the gates for no purpose and no reason, but because it was showing, according to the parable, that the first ones they wanted to be the saviors. And it's amazing when I looked at it from this perspective to see that it's the ones that are producing fruits that he said, I'm going to open up this gate for those that are producing fruit. If I bring both of the parable portions together, if I bring both of the portions together, and I see in Matthew chapter 21 again, we see that he said, I'm going to open up this, and these are the ones that are producing fruits. That was an amazing portion in verse 43 because it's not just being, right? It's not just saying, because some people they are just saying they're a believer. Some people are. There's a lot of people who can just claim the title. They claim the title even of the way. They may say they're messianic, Torah observant. They may say they're Christian, but that's just a claim. Here it says given to a people producing its fruits. Again, it's the ones that are staying moving, moving, being vigilant, especially when we're talking about being watchful, because I think we all have to be watchful. And there comes action with that. Sometimes it gives people a perception that you just have to sit there and keep looking and talking about what's happening in the world. The things are going to happen the way they're going to happen. Just as Yahushua said, there's always going to be a poor. There's always going to be poor people. There's certain things that happen in life that it's just going to happen. It's a part of it. So what do we do? What are we supposed to do today? And we're supposed to, just like this parable says, produce fruits. That's our duty, a part of our duty, should I say. Luke chapter 12 is, we have another parable in Luke chapter 12, verse 35. And here it says, this is the ESV, stay dressed for action and keep your lamps burning. And be like men who are waiting for their master to come home from the wedding feast, so that they may open the door to him at once when he comes and knocks. Blessed are those servants whom the master finds awake when he comes. Truly I say to you, he will dress himself for service and have them recline at the table, and he will come and serve them. If he comes in the second watch or in the third watch and finds them awake, blessed are those servants. But know this, that if the master of the house had known at what hour the thief was coming, he would not have left his house to be broken into. Also, you also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming in an hour you do not expect. Peter said, Master, are you telling this parable for us all? For us or for all? And the master said, who then is the faithful and wise manager, whom his master will set over the household to give them their portion of food at the proper time? Blessed is that servant whom his master will find so doing when he comes. Truly I say to you, he will set him over all his possessions. But if the servant says to himself, my master is delayed in coming, and begins to beat the male and female servants, and to eat and to drink and get drunk, the master of the servant will come on a day when he does not expect him, at an hour he does not know, and will cut him into pieces and put him with the unfaithful. And that servant who knew his master's will, but did not get ready or act according to his will receive a severe beating. But the one who did not know and did what deserved a beating will receive a light beating. Everyone to whom much was given, of him much will be required. And from him to whom they entrusted much, they will demand the more. It's amazing here because we're seeing this verse in the beginning. Some translations would translate it differently. They would say, like the King James, "Let your loins be girded about and your lights burning." It might be a little bit more close to the text, the manuscripts. But here we see in the ESV they said, "Stay dressed for action and keep your lamps burning." The BSB, "Be dressed for service and keep your lamps burning." So this is the way that our master starts off to give us this parable, to stay dressed for action and keep your lamps burning. This is what we're supposed to do. We're called to have our lamps burning, stay dressed. You're not in your clothes for sleep. You're ready for whatever is coming. Here in Isaiah, we see this in chapter 5 in verse 26. It says, "He will raise a signal for nations far away and whistle for them from the ends of the earth. And behold, quickly, speedily they come." It says, "None is weary, none stumbles, none slumbers or sleeps. Not a waistband is loose, not a sandal strap broken. Their arrows are sharp, all their bows are bent. Their horses' hooves seem like flint, and their wheels like the whirlwind. Their roaring is like a lion, like young lions they roar. They growl and seize their prey, they carry it off, and none can rescue. They growl over it on that day like the growling of the sea. And if one looks to the land, behold, darkness and distress, and the light is darkened by its clouds." I found this verse and this portion amazing because of how prepared this description is of you and me. We're to be in this place where we're not sleeping. Shoes are ready for moving. You have your arrows sharpened already. You don't have time to start sharpening them when it comes to battle. You don't have time for that. You're already ready to go in all ways. And here in that portion of Luke chapter 12, it said that. It said to be ready. To be ready. There's no time to be, you can't prepare yourself once he comes. You're already having your lamps burning, it said in verse 35. It's amazing. "And be like men who are waiting for their master to come home from the wedding feast, so that they may open the door to him at once when he comes and knocks." That confidence, the confidence of knowing that our master's coming. We all know that. But when you're waiting at the door for when he comes and knocks, it's different than just knowing he's coming. You prepared your mind, you prepared your heart, and you're always on the lookout when he shows up. Again, it says, "Blessed are those whom the master finds awake when he comes." This is who he says are blessed. The ones that he finds awake. Remember, we're talking about that word watch, being vigilant, on guard at all times. Truly, I say to you, he will dress himself for service and have them recline at a table. He will come and serve them. I mean, these are the same ones that are not slack. They're not being slothful. It also tells us in verse 40 that the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. So people are looking at wars and they're dating, right? A lot of people are dating the time, and they're saying maybe, oh, it's going to be this year, it's going to be that year, it's going to be this. It just takes me off guard when I think about this portion, because again, it's what the world does. We have a people who try to even fulfill prophecy. There's people that try to fulfill the prophecy and make things happen to make it seem, but it's not true. If the Son of Man is coming in an hour we do not expect, how can we even try to predict? It's one of those aspects that I was just pondering on. I'm like, wow, like we can't even predict it. So then if that's the case, then what do we do? We just continue to stay laboring, continue to stay moving. Because people are going to predict, and that when you say predict, it's almost like expect. It's like, oh, now's the time. Now's the time. This is what's happening. He's not coming. And he told us if you were waiting, if you knew, then you wouldn't let your house get broken up. And I think it's one of those areas that I find, again, what am I supposed to be doing right now? But it says here again in verse 43, he acknowledges it again. Our master says, blessed is that servant whom his master will find so doing when he comes. This is a part of what we're talking about, is what is the master going to find us doing when he comes? And that's always going to be the question, I guess. We'd all have to ask ourselves, because we all do different parts of the body. We're all figuring things out. We're living different lives. But verse 47 also tells us, and that servant who knew his master's will. And that would be another question that we have to all ask ourselves is, do you know the master's will? Are you doing his will? Because when he comes, he's going to judge from a position. He is just. He is just. He's not going to judge in the way that we judge. So these are areas from this parable that I think are important for us, because again, we're living in a time where there's a lot of propaganda, there's a lot of different social media platforms that can sway people, and sometimes it could be fear mongering to put people under a pressure of a thinking, so much so that sometimes people even move. They go from one country to the next, or they go over here, not because that's what that they feel Yahuah is calling them to go and do, but because of the fear. And it's true. This is true. Now, this doesn't say that you shouldn't feel inclined to prepare for a time when there's just like Joseph, he had the Pharaoh preparing for that time of the famine. This isn't about not preparation. This is just more in the sense of fear mongering. And we see it happening today. It's happening right now. But the overall question is, what's your master going to find you doing when he comes? Because it's going to be blessed are those that are doing the will, that are doing the business, the master's business. We'll go to this portion now in Matthew chapter 25. It says here in verse 1, then the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins who took their lamps and went to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish, 5 were wise. For when the foolish took their lamps, they took no oil with them, but the wise took flasks of oil with their lamps. As the bridegroom was delayed, they all became drowsy and slept. But at midnight there was a cry, here is the bridegroom, come out to meet him. Then all those virgins rose and trimmed their lamps. And the foolish said to the wise, give us some of your oil, for our lamps are going out. But the wise answered, saying, since there will not be enough for us and for you, go rather to the dealers and buy for yourselves. And while they were going to buy, the bridegroom came, and those who were ready went in with him to the marriage feast, and the door was shut. Afterward, the other virgins came also, saying, Master, Master, open to us. But he said, truly I say to you, I do not know you. Watch therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour. In verse 13, we have that word watch here. Again, it's the same word, to keep awake. That is watch. And I like that the King James has even translated to be vigilant. To be vigilant. Because you don't know the day or the hour. But in this portion, we see right here, I found this interesting, and it says that they all became drowsy and slept because the master delayed. So this is not something uncommon. It's not something that it won't happen, that will become drowsy. And Eyes might start closing. But it said in verse 10 here, it says, and those who are ready. So they woke up, even though that it says, because I found this amazing. Again, I'm reading this and I was like, whoa, it does say they all became drowsy and slept. Both sides, both the foolish and the wise virgins. So it's a human aspect, right? That I'm seeing here, that the master's saying, yeah, you guys are gonna get drowsy, just like when he came back and he said, man, can't you guys stay awake? And the disciples woke up again and he went back and prayed, and it happened like three times. So this isn't something that we want to convict anybody of, but the end result of the parable is that when it says, when the bridegroom did come, though, those who were ready went with him to the marriage feast and the door was shut. That would be the overall question that I had from this parable was, are you staying ready? Again, using the terms that we see in the King James, are you having your bouts girded? Are you ready? Do you have your arrows sharpened already? Are you prepared? Or are you just sitting around slack and worried about what's happening sometimes in the world, and you're swaying too much to the right or to the left? We know that it says that the door was shut. Well, we're going to continue to connect the dots, as I'm sure some of you have already. In Genesis chapter 7, it says in verse 16, as you know, in the time of Noah, it says here, and those that entered, male and female of all flesh, went in as Elohim had commanded him, and Yahuah shut him in. Once that door was shut, same aspect we have with Noah, there was no more opening it. There was no more opening it with the days of Noah. We all know that. For those that have read the portion in Genesis 7, you see it. The floods came and everything else was just done for. And so we have the same aspect. Once that door is shut and you ain't ready, because those women, the other, well, I want to say women, but they're not just women, it says virgins, but those that were not ready had to go to the marketplace and they're trying to figure out how to get the oil now. It's too late. It was too late. You had all these years of your life, you had all these days and times to do the master's work, to be a laborer, to toil, to stay vigilant, and you didn't do it because you had other things to do. Of course, it's not always going to have to be, again, I want to stress that point. It's not always going to have to be this major aspect of having to do some great thing as far as what the world looks as great. I think it's a blessing if you have a nonprofit organization. I think it's a blessing if you have a soup kitchen and you're feeding all the poor. I think these are blessings if you can open up an orphanage. But if you don't have that ability and you can just go and talk to some people or share the good news with a few people, it's all work for the kingdom, and it's a blessing. It's a blessing. Here in Matthew chapter 24, it says in verse 38, I'll even go back up to the beginning here in context. But concerning that day and hour, no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, nor the Son, but the Father only. For as were in the days of Noah, so will the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in those days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day when Noah entered into the ark. Just like in the days of Noah, we're reading this over and over, and it's going to strike us in the same way. They're doing the same thing today, eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, and they were unaware. Just like today, they're unaware until the flood came and swept them all away. So will the coming of the Son of Man be. So will the coming of the Son of Man be. People have time today. We all have time. We're in it today. I'm talking about today on the Shabbat. We're here. We have time to regather ourselves if we're not in the same place, and nobody is perfect in it to say that they're not guilty in that way. We can all raise our hand to say that. But here's just a warning that we're getting from the scriptures. It's just a warning. I want to read this portion out of Luke chapter 17 after he talks about Noah, like in the days of Noah. He even gives us something from the days of Lot, he says. Just as it was in the days of Lot, they were eating, drinking, buying and selling, planting and building. But on that day, when Lot went out from Sodom, fire and sulfur rained from heaven and destroyed them all. So will it be on the day when the Son of Man is revealed. It's amazing we get those two accounts. Our master gives us the account of Noah with the ship or the ark and the door shutting and it's not opening. The same thing with the day of Lot. Lot went out from Sodom and the destruction came. This is where we're at. And we're still here. We're here now. As we use the term or the phrase, there's nothing new under the sun. So looking at this parable of the virgins or the 10 virgins, it's amazing to see that. And I I seen that and they all became drowsy and slept. And I was like, wow. I guess some of the times when you read, you don't really I didn't catch that. And I was just like, whoa, that's interesting to see that they all became drowsy and slept. But then they woke up and there were some that were ready and prepared and some that were not. And this is what the truth of the matter is. Are we going to be vigilant? Are we going to be watchful? Because that's all the master says at the end is watch therefore. Be vigilant, for you know not the day or the hour. Here we have in First Peter. Let's go to First Peter right here. In chapter 4, it says in verse 10, as each has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good stewards of Elohim's varied grace. As each has received a gift, everybody here, all of us, we've all received a gift. Whatever that gift is, he says to serve one another as good stewards of Elohim's varied grace. And maybe you have a different translation. So here's the King James. As every man hath received the gift, even so minister the same one to another as good stewards of the manifold grace of Elohim. Every man, every woman has received a gift. We all have that favor. We all have something. Use it. Labor and toil with that gift. Because for the master's return. In Proverbs chapter 8, it says this in verse 34. Blessed is the one who listens to me, watching daily at my gates, waiting beside my doors. This one struck me because of the one that we see that in the parable, and the the servant or the man or the woman, he's waiting at the door. She's waiting at the door, anticipating the servant, I mean the master to come. But it also says here in Proverbs 8:34, blessed is the one who listens to me. Blessed is the one that's watching daily at my gates. Because this is what it is. You know, we speak about this. We've spoken about this, and I'm sure that you've always taken it in. Every day is a gift. Every day is a blessing. So when you say watching daily at my gates, it's truly a daily aspect. We can't say I watched tomorrow already because tomorrow's in came. But if you watch daily at the gates today, tomorrow comes and you're watching daily at the gates again. Again, that word, watching, being vigilant, staying on guard, to be alert. Here's this word in the Hebrew for this word watching, to be alert, shakar. that is sleepless, hence to be on the lookout, open eyes, watching carefully. And so the combination of being vigilant and watching is an amazing aspect because we're not just again sitting there and doing nothing. Because it's easy to sit there and do nothing and say you're a believer. But what we found from other parables is, are you doing the work though? Are you doing something towards the kingdom? Because that's what it's going to always be about. And I know that there's people out there who will say, well, we don't got to work to be saved. But you got to do something. Your salvation is given to you as a gift, definitely. But from what we see in these parables, you can't just sit around slack. Here's another parable, Matthew chapter 25, verse 14. For it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted to them his property. To one, he gave 5 talents, to another, two, to another, one, to each according to his ability. Then he went away. He who had received the 5 talents went at once and traded with them, and he made 5 talents more. So also he who had the 2 talents made 2 talents more. But he who had received the 1 talent went and dug it in the ground and hid his master's money. Now, after a long time, the master of those servants came and settled accounts with them. And he who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 talents more, saying, Master, you delivered to me 5 talents. Here I made 5 talents more. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enjoy, enter into the joy of your master. And he also, who had 2 talents, came forward, saying, Master, you delivered to me 2 talents. Here I have made 2 talents more. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. He also, who had received the 1 talent, came forward, saying, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you scatter no seed. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here, you have what is yours. But his master answered him, You wicked and slothful servant. You knew that I reap where I have not sown and gather where I scatter no seed. Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and at my coming I should have received what was my own with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to him who has the 10 talents. For to everyone who has will more be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. And cast the worthless servant into your outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Staying busy, staying moving for the kingdom, doing the work. This is what I was thinking about here reading this parable. Looking and thinking about being called a faithful and good servant or a worthless one. I mean, this is about work. It's about labor and it's about toiling, staying busy about the master's business. Just as the master said that I'm, I'm about my father's business. We're supposed to be a shadow of what Yahusha is. We're supposed to be a type. We're supposed to walk just like he walked. And when he was sitting there talking to these Pharisees as a young teenager, his mother came and asked him, Where were you been at? He said, I'm about my father's business. So we have the same calling. We're about our father's business. We're about the same business as our master. And that's the question again. When he comes, will he find you doing the business, doing the work, being vigilant? Here's a last parable here. And we know this one because this is they titled it Final Judgment. So we'll look at it from this aspect. Matthew chapter 25, verse 31. When the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, then he will sit on his glorious throne. Before him will be gathered all the nations, and he will separate people one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will place the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you are blessed. You who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of this world." And here's what they were doing, the sheep, the ones that were separated and put on the right side. For I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was a stranger and you welcomed me. I was naked and you clothed me. I was sick and you visited me. I was in prison and you came to me. Then the righteous will answer him, saying, Master, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? And when did we see you as a stranger and welcome you, or naked and clothe you? And when did we see you sick or in prison and visit you? And the king will answer them, Truly I say to you, as you did it to one of the least of these my brothers, you did it to me. The sheep, or this is the description of what the sheep will be doing. Here's what the goats are going to be doing. Then he will say to those on the left, Depart from me, you cursed, into eternal fire, prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, you gave me no food. I was thirsty, and you gave me no drink. I was a stranger, and you did not welcome me. Naked, and you did not clothe me. Sick and in prison, and you did not visit me. Then they also will answer, saying, Master, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or stranger or naked or sick or in prison and did not minister to you? Then he will answer them, saying, Truly I say to you, as you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did it not to me. And these will go into eternal punishment, but the righteous in eternal life. We see it. It's clear. The sheep, the sheep are about the Father's business, about Mashiach's business. They're about the work for the kingdom. It doesn't take much if we take one little thing from this list and say, man, this is a work, like feeding one of his children, the least of them, the young, clothing somebody. And the ones that are the goats are the ones saying, I don't got time to clothe nobody. I ain't got time to give you no food. The work that the masters just told us to do. One, again, is going to have eternal life, and the other is going to be eternal punishment, according to the scriptures. So we'll close off with a few more verses here in 1 Timothy chapter 4. It says this in verse 11. Command and teach these things. Let no one despise you for your youth, but set the believers as an example in speech and conduct, in love and faith and purity. Until I come, devote yourselves to the public reading of scriptures, to exhortation, to teaching. Do not neglect the gift you have, which was given you by prophecy when the council of elders laid their hands on you. Practice these things, immerse yourself in them, so that all may see your progress. It's interesting the way that Paul is speaking here. It gave me the same impression. Again, I know that we don't believe that Paul gave any new commandments as in Torah or instruction. But Paul here is giving you a command in the sense of encouragement and what to do. And what he's saying in this list was amazing, because he says, devote yourself to the public reading of scripture, to exhortation, to teaching. Then he says, do not neglect the gift that you have, which was given you by prophecy when the council of elders laid their hands on you. Practice these things, immerse yourself in them, so that all may see your progress. I just thought it was a beautiful encouragement for us that you have been given, again, you've been given a gift. You've been given some type of gift that sometimes we don't recognize is even a gift. It could be so clear to somebody else, but to ourselves, we don't even understand the gift that we have. But he's saying that gift that you have, use it. Use it so that way when the master comes, he sees you doing the work. Because he's blessed everybody with a gift. He's blessed everybody with a gift. Here in Hebrews chapter 3, it says in verse 7, therefore, as the Ruach HaKodesh says, today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts as in the rebellion on the day of testing in the wilderness, where your fathers put me to the test and saw my works for 40 years. Therefore, I was provoked with that generation and said, they always go astray in their heart. They have not known my ways. As I swore in my wrath, they shall not enter my rest. Take care, brothers, lest there be in any of you an evil, unbelieving heart, leading you to fall away from the living Elohim. But exhort one another every day, as long as it's called today, that none of you may be hardened by the deceitfulness of sin. For we have come to share in Messiah, if indeed we hold our original confidence firm to the end. As it is said, today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts as in the rebellion. For who were those who heard and yet rebelled? Was it not all those who left Egypt led by Moses? And with whom was he provoked for 40 years? Was it not with those who sinned, whose bodies fell in the wilderness? I love this portion because it's a daily thing. Today, hear his voice. Today, exhort one another every day while it's called today. While it's called today. Because again, we don't know when our master's going to come. We don't know when he's going to show up. We don't know how to respond in that way. It's so hard to say, well, it's going to be in this time. Oh, we see the rumors and the wars and all these things happening. But that's not what we're called to do. We're called to exhort one another daily. Be about the master's business. 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 17, it says, you therefore, beloved, knowing this beforehand, take care that you are not carried away with the error of lawless people and lose your own stability. But grow in the grace and knowledge of our Master and Savior, Yahushua HaMashiach. To him be the glory both now and to the day of eternity. Don't get caught up in all the lawlessness, all the things of the world, what they're doing. So much gossip out there, especially. In Matthew chapter 24, it says this. And this is verse 3. As he sat on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately, saying, tell us, when will these things be? And what will be the sign of your coming at the end of the age? Yahushua answered them, see that no one leads you astray. For many will come in my name, saying, I am the Messiah. They will lead many astray. You will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not alarmed. For this must take place, but the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are but the beginning of the birth pains. Then they will deliver you up to the tribulation and put you to death, and you will be hated by all the nations for my name's sake. And then many will fall away and betray one another and hate one another. Many false prophets will arise and lead many astray. And because lawlessness will be increased, the love of many will grow cold. But here's the closing. But the one who endures to the end will be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom will be proclaimed throughout the whole world as a testimony to all the nations. And then the end will come. And then the end will come. So our master's telling us clearly, don't be alarmed. These things got to take place. Don't be alarmed at what's happening in the world, and it's going to have to be. And here's the closing verses here. Luke chapter 21, verse 8. And he said, see that you're not led astray. See that you're not led astray, any of us, for many will come in our name, in his name, saying, I am he, and the time is at hand. Do not go after them. And when you hear of wars and tumults, do not be terrified, for these things must first take place, but the end will not be at once. Nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. And there will be earthquakes in various places, famines and pestilences, and there will be terrors and great signs from heaven. But before all this, they will lay their hands on you and persecute you, delivering you up to the synagogues and the prisons, and you will be brought before kings and governors for my name's sake. Luke's portion, I had to read this one because look what he says. This will be your opportunity to bear witness. Settle it therefore in your minds not to meditate beforehand how to answer. For I will give you a mouth and wisdom, which none of your adversaries will be able to withstand or contradict. You will be delivered up even by your parents and brothers and relatives and friends, and some of you they will put to death. You'll be hated by all for my name's sake. Verse 18, but not a hair of your head will perish. By your endurance, you will gain your lives. I want to close out on those portions because our master is saying, don't be alarmed. Don't be alarmed at what you see happening in the world. Don't be alarmed on what's happening in this nation and this people are fighting against these people and these things. Stay busy with your father's business. Feed those that need food, clothe those that need clothing, visit those that are in prison. All this work that got to get done regardless of all the things that are happening. Because he tells us that these things must be. There's going to be false prophets coming, trying to sway people, and people are going to get swayed. People are going to come saying they're Messiah. They're going to say they're believers, and that this is what the Messiah said to tell you and me, and we have everything. And so I just wanted to encourage that to be watchful is to be vigilant. To be watchful is vigilant. To be taking heed to what the word says and to know that we have all things in the word. And one of the major factors is that we got to just continue to do what our master has called us to do. Whatever it is that he's called you to do. However that looks, the gift that he's blessed you with is to use it so that we can hear those words, my good and faithful servant, well done. So praise Yahuah again for this day, for what he's given us in his word, showing us what we need to be doing during these times as we continue to persevere through this time. And it says, by your endurance, you will gain your life. So hallelujah for his word again. Mashalom. I do want to encourage, if you have any prayers, to put them in the chat so we can get into prayer together as the collective. And if you have anything you want to share from any of the verses or any of the things spoken of, I do want to open up the mic for you to share your thoughts, your understanding, whatever it may be. And lastly, if there's anything, a song if you want to sing, a poem if you want to share, we do want to open up the mic for that as well. So, hallelujah, hallelujah.